Hey, this is Andrew Brown from ExamPro, and welcome to my serverless certification roadmap. I want to point out that this is a preview of what's to come, so the names and the content could change in the future, but this is generally what I'm thinking for my three main certifications for serverless. And just to point out that these certifications are not by AWS, they're by me, so even though they cover AWS serverless content, I'm the issuer, so I'm the person that is creating the exam, and that's who you're doing it with. So let's take a first look at Serverless Fundamentals, which is the first on our track. And the goal here is just to prove that we have confidence and good understanding of serverless offerings on AWS. The first thing probably we'd focus on is billing and pricing, because if you want to get your team to adopt serverless, they're going to want to know the costs involved. The next thing is serverless general best practices. So AWS has a bunch of white papers, and throughout them all are some general best practices. I feel that some of them are a bit dated, and also the industry has a bit of a different idea there. So I'll probably blend some content in there to come up with some general best practices for us, so we know that we're building things correctly. I want you to have confidence in using all of the serverless services, or the most common serverless services, in isolate via the AWS console. So you'll know how to launch an SQS queue, API gateway, Lambda, step functions. It's a very, very long list, but it's not so focused on integrating those services, or if there are, there's just it's just like Lambda S3. And this is not very code heavy. So, there is going to be code involved, but you generally just need to be able to work with the code, or if you get an exam question, you might see some code, but it's not imperative that you're debugging it. It's just more so you go, okay, I know that's a SAM template. Now let's take a look at the Serverless Associate, and this one is very, very, very code heavy, and it's highly variant, meaning that we're going to use a bunch of different services together in different configurations, so we have a very robust and good knowledge on how to use those serverless services together. And I definitely want you to know how to use all the supported languages, because out in the real world, you have teams and they like to use a bunch of different languages. And so you don't have to be a Java expert, but if you get a Lambda that is written in Java, you should be able to work with the SDK with it. And that goes the same with Go, Ruby, Python, .NET, JavaScript. And so that is something you will see in the exam questions are different types of languages. So, that's something we want to focus on. Again, I said this a little bit earlier, but integrating multiple services, and the idea is really building out real applications at this stage. So if you are, if in the fundamentals, we did something simple with API gateway, and this one would be like REV53 to API gateway to Lambda to SQS that sends out an email that connects to a database, building real apps. And the other part of it is that we want to do it all as infrastructure as code. So we're not using the AWS console, we're writing SAM and CloudFormation templates. And we're definitely going to dive deeper into the configuration of serverless services, and in very particular, Lambda configuration, because it has a lot of different features like containers, layers, embedded metrics. And so we want to know Lambda inside and out at this stage of certification. And we are going to cover deployment. It's not going to be super advanced topics, but you're going to be able to get those apps deployed onto AWS. And then last in our track here is the professional, Serverless Professional certification. We're looking at advanced serverless architecture. So if you ever heard of something like CRQS, this is really popular when you have a database per service and you got to sync that data over. We'll look at more in-depth into serverless security. We'll look at in greater detail deployment, because deployment can be extreme challenge, and we don't want just a simple pipeline. We want to be able to know a large varieties in practice there. And then we're looking at designing for global availability, resilience, and DR recovery. Again, probably be a bit of a shift between the associate and professional. I'm still working on those two at this time, those two exam guides, but generally that gives you a good picture of where we're going with this. Of course, there are certifications after this for specialties. If you saw some of my screenshots on Twitter or LinkedIn, you know that I'm thinking beyond this, but I just want to focus on these three for the time being. Will I include anything outside of AWS or even vendor stuff in these certifications? I'm not sure. I kind of want to have more broad industry knowledge in here, so I might sprinkle that into these certifications. I haven't decided yet, but there you go. And I welcome all your feedback and criticisms, because I really am making these for you. So you do have to tell me what you think about this stuff.